Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, senior leaders. It's Alicia Cowan. Welcome to episode number 52 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. I can't believe it. We are wrapping up 2024, which is wild. As I keep saying, it's been just whirlwind of a year, just going by so fast. Around the Cowan house, we've been gradually getting into the holiday season. We started putting up trees just this past weekend. My entire family is obsessed with Christmas and they love the holidays. And so even though it is not even yet Thanksgiving, we are already getting into all of the Christmas decorations around the house. And we've been busy with the kids and doing a lot of different things. We're wrapping up the fall football season and cheer. And then my son just tried out for a competitive swim team. He's been swimming on a less competitive team, still swimming competitively, but he went and tried out for a senior prep team and made it this past week. So we're super proud of him. So that kid stuff, of course, keeps us really busy throughout the week. And then this past week, I also had this really great event that I attended called DisruptHR for the Tampa area. And it was hosted by Living HR and at the Feeding Tampa Bay location and sponsored and was a fundraiser for Feeding Tampa Bay, which is amazing organization and cause. And so it was a really great event. And what the format was for speakers to come on and have 5 minutes of a talk that consisted of 20 slides with 15 seconds per slide. And so it was really challenging in terms of like a format. And I was lucky enough to share the stage with a lot of really great, cool leaders. You know, some people were professional public speakers. Some people were like C-suite, like CHROs or chief people officers, and just different parts of, organizations all across Tampa and different type of leaders at all different leader levels, but great group of people. And we just really had a really great time. And what that event brought me to think about was about how all these different senior leaders that were very accomplished in each of their own rights, but they all were a little bit nervous to get up on stage. But the cool thing was they all had great topics, and despite their fear and despite their nervousness around getting up on the stage, they all pushed through and did it and really played big in a big way. And that made me think about the reverse and playing small as a senior leader and how that sometimes can trip us up. And what is the difference between a senior leader that decides to move through the discomfort and move through the anxiety and fear that they may feel in order to go after their goals or their dreams or go after something big, like public speaking, for that greater goal or that greater mission? Why do people decide to push through it versus people that might succumb to it? And sometimes it can be one and the same person, but there's times where we might decide to play big, and there might be times that we as leaders decide to play small. And what is the difference and why do we do it? And so that's what brings me to my topic for today. I want to talk about playing small and why we do it, and what are some steps that we can take to overcome it if we find that we decide we want to play big. And so for me, over the years, executives have come to me and they maybe not identify as they're quote unquote playing small, but they come to me for reasons in which they might not be taking some of those big swings. And so what it can look like is perhaps, when taking over a promotion or a new role, like an elevated role, playing small could look like being intimidated by that role, or being intimidated by maybe your peers or maybe your predecessor that was in that role. And it looks like maybe being fearful of leading your team, not feeling like you might be accepted or liked by them. Sometimes it's because of the people that are on the team or the personalities, or maybe it's their tenure or feeling like they might know more than you. And it can also look like leaders, even if they've been in their role for a long time, struggling to make decisions and being afraid to make an unpopular call. Or maybe something even bigger than that. Maybe it's like struggling to call something out when they think it's the wrong direction. And maybe it's potentially either not ethical or not fully moral, or it's against the company values. But maybe a lot of other people aren't seeing that in the same way. And so speaking out could be disruptive, and it could be against popular opinion. So again, there's a multitude of reasons why this may show up and how it show up for me, for people that I've coached over the years. But I want to give you kind of some of those examples of playing small could look like, but that's definitely not limited to those examples, but that's how it can potentially show up in your world as a leader. And so playing small, by definition, is not about your actual ability, but rather it's like an internal limit that we place on ourselves. And it's often out of this like fear or the need to stay comfortable. And so it's like that, like, if you have that on your car, like the limiter on the speed of that you can go, so you can't go past a certain speed because something in the engine will regulate it. It's like that for ourselves and our capacity. And so because of that, it shows up again as this tendency to avoid risk, to underuse our strengths, or even just to resist our own internal ambition. And it can show up in ways that look like we're avoiding being visible. We could show up as shrinking from big ideas or big decisions, or it shows up to us just like sticking to where we feel comfortable. And so I want to touch on some of the consequences for this and why it's important, and why you should consider, again, if this is something or an area where you might be playing small, is because there might be some massive missed opportunities that you are blind to. You could also be limiting your own career growth or your own just developmental growth. And if ultimately you're avoiding some of the goals that you have for yourself or your organization, you could just have this lack of fulfillment and then that lack of accomplishment towards those goals because of that limiter you've got. And this isn't just about just like getting ahead in the organization, but really it's about making the most of like your own talent and your own vision, and really being authentic to yourself and about being true to who you are and what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Okay. And I think too, a lot of times I think as leaders, because it's not just about us, we're also impacting the culture of our team and our broader organization when we play small. And it can really, again, we think we're being quiet and being playing it under the radar, but really, I think people can see this and feel this, and I think it has ultimately that impact on the culture, and of course, then the broader bottom line when we play small. So let's talk about some actionable steps that we can take. We know on this podcast, we love to talk through what's happening and why, but then also like make it practical for you and help you if you find yourself in a situation where you want to take action, how you can do so. So let's break it down. So the first step is to, number one, just simply face the fear. I think in a lot of ways, we can be conditioned to play small in the world. And why it happens is because society and sometimes our workplace environments, they can over time really subtly condition us. Even the most successful leaders, they can condition us sometimes to play it safe. And at times, again, you may feel like a fear of being like too much, or you might be afraid of standing out to like sidestep some criticism there. And so I think it's important, just number one, face the fear and get really clear on why you potentially may be playing small. And it might be a fear of judgment, a fear of failure, or sometimes even a fear of being too successful. And other times it might be internalized beliefs like I'm not good enough, or I might mess this up, And if we get to the root of this, we can actually start to rewrite those narratives. And so how you do this is when you find yourself and you find that feeling of like potentially maybe feeling like you might be playing small, is really to like unearth it and take a look at it. And one way I always like to encourage people to do this is when you have those type of thoughts is to journal and to use pen to paper to get things out of your head and look at them objectively. It allows you to write your thoughts down, get them out of your head so that you're not just having them swirl around and bounce around in your skull, that you look at them objectively and start to uncover what some of those potential fears of playing small might look like. And I will say this, again, I mentioned coaching and how coaching can help. And a coach can help also uncover some of those deeper fears or those beliefs that are driving that quote unquote small behavior. And through coaching, I've done this with leaders. It's like holding up a mirror and being on the same side as someone to offer them a safe space as a client to explore what they might not necessarily see in themselves. And that awareness that comes up, it brings light to some of those deeper fears so that we can take a look at them together. All right, so that's step one. Step two is once you understand and look at some of the fears that you might be having, is to rather than staying in this playing small space, take an opportunity to visualize bigger. And you can go to the place where you imagine your ideal future self as an executive. What would you do if you were not afraid of standing out and playing bigger? And what would your full potential look like if you're not operating with that limiter that we talked about? And you could tap into what is truly meaningful for you. If you can go out and align your goal with a bigger purpose than any of your fears. And I think if when you go out and you start to clarify your bigger mission, playing small doesn't seem so appealing, right? And I would say if you can get to the point, again, where you're going out and setting bold, very clear intentions for yourself, I encourage you to write down those specific goals that you have or missions that you have that is going to push you out of that comfort zone. And it could be something, again, big or small. It could be speaking up more. It could be taking more ownership of work or projects or whatever it may be for you in ways that really like push you and really like, again, align with what you are seeing as a vision for your future self. Another option for you here too, besides once you've got those goals set, is to seek out people that could be allies for you in this. You could find a colleague or a mentor or someone in or out of the organization who's going to encourage you to make some of these bold moves and to be able to give you constructive, objective feedback. And having those allies, it makes it way less intimidating. And you have someone that you can trust and partner with that is going to give you some real-time, real feedback. And this really helps, again, to take the time to like imagine a bigger future for yourself. Again, there might be instances or areas of your life where you're like, I am 100% fine and playing really, really big. And there might be places, very small places, that just might need some tweaking. So again, this doesn't have to be this like massive shift. It could just be small areas where you feel like you might be holding back. And again, as a coach, my role would be in this to help clients get really clear on a very compelling vision for their future self as a leader. And usually what I do here is if I'm working with someone on their mission and their vision for themselves or their team, I guide them to articulate what they're really looking for and what they really want. And then I remind them of that vision when they're tempted to back down or even stray from that vision. So I think about a senior leader that was crafting her mission for her team when she first started leading them. And really we designed a very compelling, a very clear and articulate vision for her and her team that really served as our North Star as we continue to help her as she really established herself as the senior leader for this team. And it really helped her through the entirety of leading that team to come back to something and have this like anchor where it was very clear to her and her team what that vision looked like and if they were in alignment with it or not. And so that's the ways that if you get stuck on this, you can have someone help you that is outside of maybe your team or yourself to help you get clarity here. All right. The third step here is to take what I'm going to call micro risks. A micro risk is a little mini risk that's not, doesn't feel so daunting, but playing small is not going to get you to your overarching goal, right? So the consequence of playing small really is that you're going to limit that growth and potential. So once you've set that bigger goal, you can break it down into small intentional risks. And these little like micro risks can be maybe it's a way that you're going to speak up on the daily in regards to your bigger goal or your bigger idea. It could be pitching that new project that you want to be a part of, or seeking even bigger, higher visibility opportunities out there. And so that's what I want you to do is, if you decide, potentially commit to just one small, uncomfortable action at a time. And that will help build those habits of knocking down and tackling some of the bigger goals. And then each time that you can take those micro risks and you realize you can survive it, even though that discomfort and those feelings will come up, once you move through it, you get to the other side and you realize that you're glad that you did it, even those wildly uncomfortable feelings might have come up, which was exactly how I felt. And some of my colleagues that did the speaking engagement earlier this week, it aligned with our overall goals, but it was not necessarily comfortable in the moment. But ultimately afterwards, it helps build confidence because we can live to tell the tale. And that helps start to rewrite some of those stories that we tell ourselves about the doubt and some of the fear and some of that. And we realize those are just feelings, and we don't necessarily have to succumb to them just because we might feel a little bit uncomfortable. And that's what we can do. Again, from a coaching standpoint, I help with accountability actions and help people and clients take some of those bold actions. I help celebrate the progress that they make and help to get clients to feel comfortable stepping out of where they are typically comfortable, stepping out of those really cozy comfort zones that they might cling to. And each of those small risks, again, builds those habits of thinking bigger and strengthens the muscles of self-confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from just being innate and just having it. Self-confidence is when you actually can go through those uncomfortable moments and have your own back and do it despite some of the uncomfortable feelings. Okay. All right. So that's what I have for you today. Playing small is not something that you just have to succumb to. You can really take a look at your areas of life where you might feel like you're playing small and decide to act on them. And again, maybe you don't feel like you're playing small in any ways, but maybe somebody you manage or work with is, and you can help them through playing small. And so that's what I'll ask. Take a look and just do an audit to see what you find. And then if you find something that you want to work on, the challenge is to take action. Commit to one of those micro risks or a little single bold action this week that might align with what your values and your goals are. And as always, if you want to consider working with a coach to go through this and achieve even faster, bigger growth, a lot of executives use coaching to get those results quicker and really help change themselves and ultimately their culture in a very quick way. And so if you want to explore that, some of the untapped potential and making some of those bolder moves, don't hesitate to reach out to a coaching resource. And you can reach me through either this platform or through my website. It's Alicia Cowan Coaching, ELISIAKEOWN coaching.com. And you can reach out and we can set up a call to talk about if it could be right for you. So thank you so much, as always, for listening. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.